Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all between the binary. This is Get Informed with Wajeeh. This is Wajeeh Lion. Thank you for tuning in. I have just probably muted my mic and I muted it right back. I used to have a radio talk show on 91.9 KSTV, Manhattan, Kansas. I interviewed some big names in Kansas. Not like there's a lot of big names there. Maybe I should put my radio voice on every time I get on here. Makes a difference, doesn't it? But then it's kind of hard to bring in my Middle Eastern accent when I have my radio voice on. So I need to work on that a minute. As we let people join us in this live stream, make sure to click that heart button in the bottom left corner or right corner, depending on what kind of phone you have. There's the comment button also right next to that, and the share button with the three dots and a triangle. Please consider sharing this with your family and friends. Have them join the revolution of information. It's not like we are at a bad time where we can't learn from each other, so this is a good time to learn about what's happening in the Middle East. I'm letting it go for another few minutes so other people could join us in this live stream. Well, hello, Aaron. Party if you talk this name. Well, have you asked questions here today? All right. We are at 115, 120. Look at that. We're moving up in the numbers. I'll let you guys throw your questions either in my live stream here. I hope that you could consider also going to my group chat to put your questions in there. If you can go to my group chat without losing this live stream, that would make my life much easier for questions, and it would make it more likely that I will read your question if you send it in my group chat. But I will do my best to hunt down your questions, even in the comments for the live stream. Why you hear part four podcast only due to schedule? You guys need a better way to do questions. I swear, I know, I know. I have no clue what to do about this at the moment, and it's kind of so. Malcolm has like an assistant that collects all the questions from the live stream and sends it to Malcolm, and Malcolm would have a list of questions to answer. But I still haven't found someone that would like to volunteer to do that for me. But if I could have someone that shows up to all my live stream that's interested in collecting all the questions and sending it to me and being my assistant for that, I am willing to try that. So if you think you would be a great volunteer for that type, if you think you can collect all the questions, write them down, and send them to me by text message, by Substack message, that would be amazing. If you want to volunteer, just send me a direct message, and we can work on that. Why not? I'm more than happy to find solutions to problems. I like fixing problems. Good morning. I want to thank you for the subscription. Of course, about subscriptions, y'all. Yesterday was May Day, but even before May Day, we like to give away paid premium subscriptions to anyone that cannot afford one. There are very nice people out here that come out and support me financially and support the work that I do and support that I like to give away premium memberships to anyone that needs one. And so we're getting the financial support to help you guys join us become premium members for anyone that cannot afford it. Simply send me a DM with your email associated with the account that you're using, or go to the group chat and write. Don't put your email in the group chat for your own personal security. It is a security risk for you and your loved ones if you use and put your email in front of everyone to read. Just say I am interested in a premium membership and I can't afford one. And I will personally reach out to you and get the email associated with the account and add it to our premium memberships. And for anyone and everyone that can afford that, I would hope that you could consider becoming a premium member. It pays for the bills, it opens up the door for everyone to learn more, and it helps me help you guys understand the complexity of the Middle East. I speak mainly two languages. I like to think that I can get in trouble in many other languages. Um, and I can get in trouble maybe in three or four other languages than Arabic. I also speak Arabic and understand. I speak Arabic in four or five dialects, but I understand Arabic in more than 10 dialects. Uh, I'm kind of diverse. I come from a diverse family from the Middle East. My mom is Syrian. My dad is Saudi. His dad is Saudi. His dad's dad is Saudi or from the Arabian Peninsula. But this is an interesting part. Mm, my grandpa is married or was married, bless his soul, to an Egyptian woman, my grandma. His father was married to a Turkish woman. So my mom is Syrian, my grandma is Egyptian, my great grandma is Turkish. And that kind of gives you an idea of how mixed I am in the Middle East, which kind of allowed me to understand more dialects because each of these regions have their own dialects and stuff. And you know also opened up my eyes to different cultures way more quickly than just the Saudi culture. Yeah, a little bit more diverse than your usual person. Oh, I did my DNA test and I came back 6% Ashkenazi Jew. For anyone that does not want to believe that the Middle East is not mixed up and that Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula has no Jewish bloodlines in them is an absolute lie. In fact, there are some tribes in Arabia that exist right now that can trace their lineage directly to Judaism. Like Al Harbi is a Bedouin tribe in Arabia that historically was a Jewish tribe that's now a Muslim, like a Jewish faith tribe. They're ethnically Jewish, ethnically Arab Jews, but they are Muslim now, or many of them are. There are some secretly under the table who are Jews, still Jew, practice the Jewish faith. I am curious what you think about why Iran is not helping the people of Lebanon more forcefully since Israel is breaking the ceasefire. Because they have an existing ceasefire with the United States, I believe, and that they don't want to complicate the war on themselves. But this is what they're doing. They are making sure that any of their negotiations would include the proxies of Iran, whether it's the Houthis, whether the their proxies in Iraq, or proxies in Lebanon, or proxies in Yemen. All of these proxies are like one of the main priorities of the Iranian people. And as they are a big, large priority of them, peace talks with the United States have included them in that. And the United States walked back from that, even though the Pakistani prime minister that was involved in these peace talks said, "Oh yeah, the ceasefire included Lebanon, with the ceasefire that is included in Yemen, included in Iraq, and included in Iran." So from day one, the peace talks have included Hezbollah, included the Iranian proxies. Iran may not have all the resources that they used to have to support their proxies as they used to, because they're focused now on inside Iran. But no, they have not given up on their proxies. They're being strategic. I would say they're being a little bit more strategic about how they support their proxies right now. Good question. That's a good question from Debbie. Brandy, I want to know about Syria. I actually think it would be a good discussion in depth, each nation. Okay, I'll see what I can do for you. I'll write an article about that or something. I'm happy to help with the subscription, Mr. Gay. Even though Trump claims the war is over, what is it? The possibility that Iran would strike the American blockade. If Iran sees no future talks with the United States, um, here's what making Iran a little hesitant. The fact of the matter is that when Iran doesn't want the United States to hit its most important infrastructure, which is like oil facilities, water desalination, other electric plant infrastructure. The reality is that every player in the Middle East on the battle board has a lot to lose. Even though Iran has lost a lot already, and a lot of people like to claim that they have nothing else to lose, in one way, what they mean is that if they don't survive this war, it's all or nothing. So it's you show up 100% for your country now, otherwise Iran may not be here tomorrow. And that's what they mean about that. What is the reality on the ground otherwise than that is that Iran does not want to lose their electric plants, does not want to lose their basic infrastructure that the rest of the society survives on. The GCC nations, in the same time, do not want their secure infrastructures hit, because Iran has shown more than capable of striking all of the Gulf nations' most secure infrastructures, whether it's water desalination, electric plants, oil infrastructure. The Iranians have showed that they're capable of hitting all of them and committing large amount of damages that would take days to put down a fire. Not sometimes depends on the fire, sometimes weeks. We're talking about oil fire, not your regular fire. And if if Iran does that, then that fucks up the whole Gulf country. Also, the United States does not want their warships, including their aircraft carriers or their any of their destroyers, hit, because those are very expensive ships that takes years to build. And the US military is not 100% able to block all the missiles and drones attack against these ships. And those any of those ships hold like hundreds to multiple thousand soldiers at a time. So there's a lot of things that all sides could risk losing. That's why you haven't seen the Iranians striking first against the Americans. That's why you haven't seen the Americans going back into the battlefield and striking Iran. That's why you haven't seen any of the Gulf nations taking any direct actions against Iran because everyone has realized the actual cost of this war. When this war first started, there was a strategic miscalculation between from the United States and from Saudi Arabia that they would be capable of decimating the Iranian regime and having a regime change within few days to a week. Now everyone has realized that not only Iran can survive all these strikes and the regime survive all these strikes, but they're able to head back and own the Strait of Hormuz. That's a nightmare for everyone that's involved because they thought that the Strait of Hormuz would still be open, oil flow would still continue, the global markets would not be much like severely affected, but the exact opposite happened. So everyone is at a standstill. Everyone's going, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to move this soldier here. Wait a minute, I don't know if I want to take this shot." Everyone is second guessing themselves. The Iranians have a plan for the plan for the plan. If the leader dies, they have 10 snakes to take over. Why do Americans feel like they have to support Israel military even though they are committing catastrophic atrocities against their neighbors? Honestly, the we need to do a history lesson for that one. But that goes back all the way to the establishment of Israel. Um, that goes toward the Israeli lobby in the United States. I talked about how one of the biggest weaknesses in the US government is the foreign lobby system. When the United States allows foreign governments to have their own lobbies in the United States and use their capital to financial capital to get out of US senators and representatives and presidents whatever they want, then this is not America first. This is Western countries first, and then Americans. For the longest time, and until now, this hasn't changed. Americans pay premium dollar on medications. Meanwhile, third world countries pay discounted price on medication. I'm not asking for third countries to pay full price on medications. I'm just asking for that the American people would pay the discounted prices on all of the medications that exist because we have shown that these medications are cheap to produce, and the only reason that we are charging a premium is because we want the American consumer to be the person paying for all of the research for these medications, and the American people are the ones being used as test rats for all these medications. So that's how you get I can go on and on about the medical system. I apologize. And then what was going back? So the lobby system that we have is undermining the American people, undermining the U.S., not only the American people, the U.S. sovereignty. The Saudi government was able to secure lands in Arizona, and Arizona doesn't have a lot of water, but they used to have a lot of underground water. And the Saudi government used lobbies. And by the way, more than 500 former U.S. senior officials are in the payroll of the Saudi government and the United Arab Emirates, and that is to navigate the U.S. Political system and take advantage of that and how to manipulate the system so they can get whatever they want. More than 500 senior U.S. officials. That was done years ago. That number is probably way higher now. You're talking about CIA, you're talking about Pentagon, you're talking about NASA, you're talking about former U.S. representatives, you're talking about former U.S. Senators, you're talking about any of those big name positions, former U.S. Advisor to the White House, former uh, uh, you can just think about the position they have hired. You think that's for your best interest? And I met Ilhan Omar, and I told her there's 500 former U.S. officials on the payroll of Saudi Arabia. Could we do something about it? You know what her response was? It was very depressing, honestly. She said that's part of their First Amendment. To me, it was the first time I ever hear someone say, "Oh, it's part of their First Amendment to betray their country and work for another country and give them the inside trade information and hand them the keys over to a foreign country." That's Ilhan Omar telling me there's nothing that she could do. Yeah, I was shocked by that reply. I was shocked myself. And I've met Ilhan Omar several times, and I know her team, and her team has helped me with a lot of personal things. But I'm not gonna lie, I met with her and I told her, "Well, this is what's happening in your country. It's been reported. I'm not giving you any facts. The Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, they all have reported on this. Former U.S. officials are paying and working for countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, giving them all the secrets, teaching them how to bypass U.S., the balance of power, the checks and balances that we have in the country. Some people in the U.S., former U.S. officials, know how to bypass them. So when a country like Saudi Arabia, or even worse, there might be people that even have worse than Saudi Arabia. That person gets a job at the U.S. government, learns all the inside information, knows all the secrets, and then they go to Saudi Arabia and they go, Habibi, I know you want what you want a nuclear weapon from America. Yeah, I can help you out, my friend. Oh, you want to learn about how we can ignore your human rights violations? Don't worry. You have public image about Jamal Khashoggi. Let me teach you how you can bypass all of that. And you're sitting there and you have no idea what's going on. Tell us about who are the Kurds and why they are important. I will do a specific article about that. Um, that alone needs an hour of discussion or 2 hours of discussion, and I need to prepare for it. There was a quote I heard that was supposedly said by What's her name? Churchill. Churchill is a very amazing speech giver, but I'm not 100%. I need to double check the quote. But the quote goes, and regardless of how if Churchill said it or not, the quote is good in my own opinion. They asked him if you have a 5 minute speech, how many hours do you prepare for it? He goes, at least 5 hours. And then they asked, well, if you have a speech that's going to be for a few hours, how long do you prepare for it? He goes, 5 minutes. When you have, uh, what he was trying to say is that if you want to deliver a message, precise message that hits the ear, you need to be precise in every letter you say. So every word that comes out of your mouth would be memorable in everyone's ears. It's only 5 minutes. But now, if I'm going to sit down here and talk to you for hours, I don't need to plan for hours and hours and hours. I only need 30 minutes to an hour. And if I know my topics, if I know I'm speaking. Now, if I have to understand a new topic from scratch, I have to go and study, which is different. Why I call it study is because before I talk about anything, I need to know the details. I need to understand it first to a point where I can explain it. If I can understand it first to a point where I can explain it, then when I prepare for a few hour talk, I'm only explaining and answering what I just learned and studied. But if I want to deliver a precise message, I need to take all that hours that I spent on the study and spend another additional few hours to craft a message. Something for you guys to know. I know you guys like interesting facts. You know, the sad thing about the Democrats is that they're no longer the working man. I say this again and again. The U.S. House of Representatives was designed to continue growing. It was never designed to have a fixed numbers of representatives. The U.S. Senate was. The U.S. Senate was always designed to have two senators for each state, regardless of the population. People who were too afraid of classism, too afraid of the working class, and too afraid of people of color lobbied hard to make sure that there is no more increases in the number of people that represent the citizens of the United States in the House of Representatives. Because they saw and they believed as we allow that number to increase, we allow people from different backgrounds to run, and that will give better representation based on the people who are living in those countries, in these states. And as we have more of these representation happening, the more diverse our political arena would be. If you asked anyone in the last 60, 70 years, are you a Democrat or a Republican? They will tell you, I'm a moderate. What they mean by that is that I don't see anyone or any ideology in the arena that I could claim my own. I'm not asking to form a new political party. I was just saying the two parties that we have and the people that represent us in those parties. do not represent the demographics of the United States. And that's where you are falling short. As you are having less people represent you for the population of the United States, as the population is increasing, the more inequality will continue to happen in the system. So, what can we do about this? We need to do a constitutional amendment because that's how it got changed to begin with. Or it needs to be sued. It needs to be taken to the Supreme Court, say that this is unconstitutional. We no longer have a adequate representation in the US House because in particular of that decision. And I believe as that changes, the more people are going to be like, this person actually says everything I believe in. Okay, that's exactly what we want to hear. But as I continue to hear people, oh, I don't see anyone that represent me, that tells me that we don't have enough people running. Someone is saying good luck there. That's okay. Good luck there. But you know what? We have been saying good luck for a lot of things and we kept putting it aside. And now you are continuing to be hungry. And as more people are continuing to be hungry, we are inching away toward a revolution. And I'm not wanting this country to go to a revolution. I would like to fix this problem before we head to a revolution. And as people continue to say, good luck with that, as people continue to say, oh, maybe not in my lifetime, this problem continues to put aside. People need to be able to draw their own red line and have their own demands, absolute demand. No, baby, I need more representation. If each state did their own referendum, if each state collected enough signatures to put something on the ballot, we would not be here. We would not be here. Why do we have 60-year-olds, 70-year-old, 80-year-olds in the U.S. House of Representatives in the U.S. Congress that has been there for decades? Listen, I always say there's something to be said about experienced representatives and experienced senators because they understand how the system is run. But there's also something to be said about an aging government. An Asian government does not have the interest of improving. They're all tired. They're all so forced to go to U.S. Senate to they're falling asleep. We're talking about bombs. We're talking about nuclear weapons. We're talking about there's these motherfuckers. That's the problem. We have an aging house, political house, and majority of the people in this country are young. That's the same problem we used to face in Saudi Arabia. By the way, the more you elect old people that are barely awake, the more likely nothing happens. You're just going to sit down, oh, we elected such and such. Yeah, we're so happy. We need young people with energy to wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and run. We need people that even if Iran says we're not going to go peace negotiations, they go to Pakistan. They're like, "Yalla, Habibi, we're waiting on you." We need people when the American people need the answer. They go quickly and give us some answers. We need creative people who can think outside the box. We need trustworthy people. So if you see young leaders in your community, encourage them to run. It doesn't have to be for the US House and US Senate right away. Encouraging them and supporting them to run for local small offices makes a huge difference. Cut out the middleman. Run for yourself, run for your community. It starts there. It starts small and goes big. You have no idea why I started becoming a grassroots organizer in Missouri and in Kansas. I witnessed my first public execution at the age of 10 in Saudi Arabia. I could have gotten a similar sentence just for collecting signatures. And I broke some records in Missouri collecting signatures to put ballots, to put some laws on the ballots to be voted on. I got attacked in Missouri by some deranged guy coming out of their house because I was canvassing, doing voter education for the November ballot. Because I know deep down inside of me that there is zero chance of any of that happening in Saudi Arabia. And I know that if we continue to do the work like this that we do in the US, where we are grassroots organizing, where we are knocking door to door, where we getting our neighbors involved to make the change happen, not only we can do this by law here, but if we don't do it, we can become like Saudi Arabia tomorrow. That's why you have to lose. That's what you are risking by not doing anything, by brushing it under the rug. You're risking becoming another dictatorship. We already have an oligopoly in the economy system. What oligopoly means few rich people own the whole economy, and it's very expensive for everyone else to join the economic market and compete in the US economy. We're already heading that way. We now have someone in the US White House that wants the corrosion of the checks and balances in the US government. And he's working very hard to do so. You think by sweeping it under the rug, that's going to help stop that from happening? If you thought when is the time for action and when is the time for change, it's now. It's now or never. You have no idea. You can vote in Saudi Arabia for collecting signatures. I can go to jail and lose my life, lose my head. Do you understand that? Thanks for hearing me. Thanks for attending my TED Talk. The UK hasn't fallen yet. So someone says all countries eventually fall. Yes, that statement is true, but not all countries have to fall. Countries that fall are countries that allow demented leaders make horrible decisions, small decision at a time, big decision at a time, and then isolating the country. And that isolationism is what eventually leads to a fall of a nation. And that's what our president is currently doing. Is it preventable? Yes. The United Kingdom was an emperor. They prevented the fall of the they prevented the fall of the whole government. The kings had to make concessions. There, they have some. They still have some countries in their own commonwealth. They could have easily fallen, but they've been around for more than 500 years because they made sure when there is demented decision making, these motherfuckers be put aside and someone else who's smarter that can make wiser decisions take over. Is the fall of the US government preventable? Yes. It is preventable now if you decide to take action, but it may not be tomorrow. I haven't even finished reading your question. I believe this may be the beginning of the end for the United States. National debt. Uh, Regarding this topic, I the how the United States is getting kicked out of the United from the world global standing, how it's getting kicked out of the Middle East, its debt, and all of what's in between. I am working and collaborating with the Middle Eastern professor, a well-respected one, specializes in Middle Eastern security and Middle Eastern conflict and the United States standing there. We're going to have a collaboration. We don't have an exact date yet, but we will be talking in depth about that because we care about the United States. We love the United States. We want the best for the United States. And when we are saying this shit, we're not saying it because we hate this country. We're saying it because we're seeing a pattern. We know how the game works, and it's scary for us. And that should say something to you when it's scary for us. We want only the best for the American people. We want only the best for the American government, and we're not doing that. We're not putting America first. Question from said or test Tison. I don't know how to read these names. Trump Trump is allied with Putin. Well, not only he's allied with Putin, he loves Putin's ass. Malcolm says, find you someone who loves you like Trump loves Putin's ass. And Putin is actively allied with Iran, North Korea, China, Saudi Arabia, and many adversaries of the United States. So why is it not so obvious to America that Trump is a traitor? Because Americans live in a bubble. Americans are isolated from the global shock more than the rest of the global market. You think you're facing hard time paying the bills at the gas tank pump? You should see the rest of the globe. They're paying 10, 20, $10 a gallon at the moment in some countries. You are having subsidized in a way oil prices in a way because we're using our own oil production. We are using oil that is and been in this in are reserved, are all reserved to, stabilize the market and so on and so forth. And as we are trying to stabilize the market, as we are trying to uh, make prices a little bit more stable for Americans, Americans continue to live in somewhat of an economic bubble. The prices that you are seeing now, if our reserve runs out, if our uh, bubble gets bursted, you are instantly going to be living in hell. You're going to live in most of the middle class would be shifted to a poverty class within 24 hours if our bubble is bursted. Now, Americans also sadly will not know a country and where it is at in the world geography unless they are directly affected by its actions. They don't know where most of Middle Eastern countries are. They don't even know what Saudi Arabia looks like for most of the time. They don't know the difference between a Sunni and a Shiite. They don't know the difference between a Persian and an Arab. That's the reality that you have here. People continue to live in a bubble. And unless that bubble is affected, they don't give a damn. Ay. I need to talk about urban economics sometime because that's another one by design that we do to isolate people by class. And then after we isolate them by class, we divide services based on these classes. Don't get me started. Do you think that our enemies to democracies are enriched inside our political economics? Yeah, dictators, adversaries continues to use U.S. economy and the political arena and the lobby system to take advantage of all of your American sovereignty and economic benefits. Uh, and even if they don't do that, Russia is making bank out of this conflict, and they haven't did not have to move a finger. They're making a lot of money selling oil. Oh. Even if Trump is gone, the damage to the U.S. economy and the global market would take years. Like, remember the 2008, 2007 market crash? We're heading toward that direction, maybe worse if we are going to continue in this situation. Korea, a first world country, is already facing becoming a third world country because 90% of its energy consumption comes from oil. They're already urging their people to take shorter showers. People think that's funny. Countries, when they do that, they have drastic measures and they are facing horrible times. And that's a U.S. ally and a first world country. Now, can you imagine what would happen to those countries that was not even a third world, that's not even a first world country, that's a third world country? I don't know if you know, but on average, U.S. sanctions kill about 500,000 people, mostly children. That is only U.S. sanctions every year. Results in 500,000 people dying, mostly children. What is the consequence of the new NATO bank in Canada? Will they have the US since the defense contract would be made in Canada? NATO or countries who are in NATO are actively finding ways to make alliances with each other outside the United States because the United States is too much headache to deal with, too much of a headache. And the more you do that, the more you isolate the United States. What is this doing to U.S. national security? It is allowing countries to start establishing their own security without the U.S. being part of that equation. Entrenched. I'm sorry. Let's read this again. I am dyslexic, so sometimes when I'm reading fast. Let's go. They are very much entrenched in our political system, and I talked about how the like Saudi Arabia, Russia, um, Mossad, Israel always try to hire former U.S. senior officials and politicians to get under their payroll so they could be doing favorable things for foreign countries. I mean, you don't even have to be Republican. You could be a Democrat and you could be an agent for Egypt. What's that Democratic guy named that was taking gold bars from Egypt as payment for making things a little easier for them? Uh, this is not a joke. U.S. politics have been infiltrated by foreign governments. And we like to say, oh, like we hate this foreign government and we hate that foreign government. And we have been allowing all that to happen. Now let's see who has questions. Who has more questions for me? In the meantime, like, subscribe, and share. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're definitely watching a recording. So definitely like, subscribe, and share. If you want to support this kind of live stream and this type of news coverage and breaking down what's happening in the Middle East and answering your questions about what is or what's not, please consider becoming a paid subscriber. It helps me do this full time so you don't have to. If you don't want to do that, just become a free subscriber. If you can't afford becoming a premium member, I'm more than happy to give away premium memberships to anyone that cannot afford it. Question: how fast will Iran close the Bab al Mandab if they get attacked? Within hours. Bab al Mandab is 50% smaller than the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is about 22 miles. Bab al Mandab is about 10 miles or kilometers. I forgot. 10 either both of them, either 10 miles or 20 mile or kilometer. I need to go back and check. And the only reason they haven't closed that is because they're using it as an ace card. And they have demonstrated several times during this war that they are capable of not only shutting down Bab al Mandab, but also stealing boats. And the last boat that was stolen was yesterday by whole bunch of pirates. I don't know if anyone drew that connection for you, but the Houthis and the Somali pirates are aligned and working with each other. Wajeeh, do you think Arab nations are more capitalists minded or uh, cater for communism, socialism? You know, the reality of the situation in most countries is a combination of both. Some socialist services, including the military, is a socialist program. Any military in the world is a socialist program. You're investing and paying money into a project that does not give you money back. You're not expecting money. Like when we give companies to make us guns and weapons, we're not expecting to make any profit off of that. The company that's making it is making the profit. When we are training, spending millions and millions on soldiers, we're not expecting that soldiers to bring us profit. We're expecting that soldiers to protect the country. That's a socialist program. I don't know who told you that's a capitalist ideology. Um, wait, and then yeah, Arab countries have many socialist ideology that is originated within the Arabic culture. So like we call it socialist now because that's what it falls under. But Arabs have worked in an environment where everyone is supporting another and a constant basis. If a tribe needs money from another tribe, that tribe usually gives them the money without expecting that money back. But when that other tribe is needing that assistant at any time, they go back to the tribe they assist and they said, "Hey, we're in a situation. We need your help." They expect that tribe to show up, whether they have money or not, because they have that system, the tribal system, where each tribe is supporting another. So they have, like, humans have existed with socialist ideas all the time. And capitalism have always existed around us as well because we buy and sell, and that's how we trade. So, like, the anyone that gives you a pure system type of ideology is lying to you. I I I talked a lot about the principles of Keynesian capitalistic ideology and a classical economic ideology, and they're both capitalistic ideology, and they have huge disagreements of whether the government should intervene in an economy. A classist economist will tell you, and they both won uh, 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 economic Nobel Prizes. The classist person would tell you, "Oh, the classical person would tell you that prices are not sticky. The market moves up and down and reacts automatically." And they believe that the government should not intervene. And they believe in money trickle down economy. But that's very old school thinking. Keynesians came a little bit after that and they said, hold on, hold on, hold on. After constant studies, after close attention, we have noticed that prices are sticky, especially with the fast moving of information and with the how fast things are going now. There is no time for the market to react all the time. We don't have enough space and time for the market to adjust itself automatically all the time. So sometimes prices become sticky. So demand goes high all of a sudden and the price hasn't jumped all the way up yet. Or demand has dropped all of a sudden and then the price hasn't. come down automatically yet. So what a Keynesian tells you, and in a simplified way, will tell you, well, the government needs to get involved. They need to fix the prices that are getting sticky, and they need to make sure that money trickle down is like it doesn't work. So they need to make sure that there are ways for the working class or for working people to get adequately um, paid for their job. So anyone that's coming up to me and telling me, you are a communist, you want the US government to be involved in our economy, how do you expect rules and regulations exist? How do you think we put end to child labor? How do you think we put end to slavery? Without government intervention? Things just happen naturally? US government needs to get involved. All these motherfuckers that are finding offshore banks and putting their money in offshore banks and avoiding the tax system, what the fuck is happening to that? Have you seen trickle down economy from offshore banks into your wallet? Have we seen any mandatory thing saying if you make a certain percentage of profit, you need to give a certain percentage, or you need to give your people, your employees, a certain raise? No, you don't. We say we are giving you tax breaks so you can have trickle down economy. And as soon as the company makes profit, what do they do? Do you understand what they do? No. I tell you, they go back and buy the shares they were selling in the market. Why do as a company go after they made profits, they go to the market and buy their own shares to increase the value of the company? Why does a why does a CEO own why does the owner of a company owns an LLC, and that LLC is owned by a holding company, and that holding company is owned by a trust fund. So when I come to sue the LLC that exists is worthless. All it has is employees. The assets and the funds are owned by a holding company. So the holding company does not lose money. The owner does not lose money. There's 3 or 4 steps for me to reach this motherfucker that's been taking advantage of me. That's why you see billionaires getting sued for hundreds of millions of dollars and they're walking around like nothing happened. What happened to trickle down economy? We created the perfect system for monopoly. That's not capitalism. You know, the United States is not even in the top 10 when it comes to capitalistic economies. The United States does not even make it to the top 10 when it comes to capitalistic economies. Even capitalism, we're not doing it right. Is that a slap to the face to you? It should be. You don't even have a good capitalistic economy. Because if you have a good capitalistic economy, it shouldn't be that hard for you to join the market. The whole point of capitalism is competition. Can you compete in the current economy? You have $10,000 to open a small, tiny shop. that sells phone covers in the mall. You don't even have that. Families and tribes in Pakistan and India come together and collect a lot of money. And then they send one of their kids abroad. And that kid opens a gas station. And that gas station is funding their family in Pakistan or India. And they're feeding them. That's how they were able to open a gas station. You don't even have that. You can't even open a gas station. You need to be a multimillionaire in the US. Can you open a restaurant? You don't even have the cost to rent a restaurant. Why is it so? Have you asked yourself, why is it so hard for me to have a business in the United States? Is that a good capitalistic system? So even when you get a politician that tells you, oh, that person is communist, tell them, where's my capitalistic economy? Where's my capitalistic economy? I want my capitalism, motherfucker. I have already written a couple of Big Eyes 14 is asking, can you review the consequence of the UAE exit from OPEC? Go back and read some of my articles in the last couple of days I've written about that. Someone wrote a paragraph here. If you want to increase the productivity and improve the quality of life, a government-run healthy insurance system needs to happen. Yes. How do you expect people to give you a great return on the US economy when people are barely even able to pay their bills and they're from paycheck to paycheck? The United States became great because they gave everyone an opportunity to to join us. We gave people opportunity to become part of the national pride. We gave people opportunity to innovate. We gave people opportunity to go through some of the best education system in the world. What have we done in the last 50 years is constantly cut funding from schools. What does it mean when you cut funding from schools? You are cutting funding for the future. What does it mean when you cut funding of future minds for an economy? That means you are investing in the failure of the future. We spend trillions on our military. If we spend a fraction of that, we would have the best education system in the world. Our teachers are borrowing money to have pencils and tissues and Germex and highlighters in a classroom. We expect our teachers to pay from their own pocket. That is a fraction of what anyone is making. An entry level teacher makes a $30,000 a year. What the fuck is that going to do to you? We don't have good education system. When it came to the United States, I went to one best 100 schools, high schools in the US. I was very privileged. I was very lucky. I grew up in from junior high to high school and then through college in a small town called Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple. Luckily, Manhattan was a small enough a town to have one high school, but big enough to have one big high school. We had like five, six basketball courts. We had like three football fields. We had uh, all the resources that you could think. Rich people one time wanted to make their own high school, and the whole city was like, fuck you, fuck that. We all get the same resources given to everyone. And because I had access to one of 100 best high schools in the United States, I got, you know, uh, into uh, forensics, and I was able to, win awards over my forensics work and mock Congress and other stuff like that, which got me very involved with the Saudi government later on. And I had access to, amazing. I was a student, and I am a student with learning disability. So I had hearing aids, I had dyslexia, I have ADHD, and you could add the whole list. If it wasn't for the fact that there were paras coming with me from class to class and giving me that little extra assistance, I moved from being an F and a C student to becoming an A student that graduated with honors. And all it took is a little extra help. All it took is a para giving me an extra assistant of how I received that information. Most high schools in the United States cannot even afford having a teacher to have a para. And the only reason I got access to this amazing education system, I saw what horrible education system looked like in the US. My first 2 years in the United States were in Columbia, Missouri. No access to paras, no access to students with learning disability. I was an F student. I thought I would become a gangster. I seriously thought I wanted to become a gangster when I was in Columbia, Missouri. My first 2 years in America, where I was still learning the English alphabet, because the surrounding that I had, the education system that I have, wasn't supportive. I'm now one of the most educated person that you might know. That's through your education system, not Saudi Arabia. That's here in the United States. Imagine what's happening to your kids. Now you're having people who are like wanting to do old education system, no calculators. You go back to who's pushing these ideas, some conservative mindset, religious mindset. We're trying to push religion to through people's throat, and we're expecting everyone to come out genius. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, let's see questions here. What did I miss? I'm having good rants today, y'all. What does that exist? Yeah, you want, future good education system. You want the future good economy for your kids. So give them good education. As simple as that. If parents are too busy to go to school, if our parents are too busy to come back home and take care of our kids, then our government and our school system need to be there available to make sure that our kids come out good. In India, there was a time where they hunted down all of the older elephants. There was a whole bunch of baby elephants. They killed all the older elephants. So the baby elephants growing up had no one teaching them the way. This is true. So they went and started destroying farms, breaking into people's property, killing people because they had no one to raise them. So they went to Africa and they adopted some older elephants and they brought them back to India. Through months and years, these older elephants started teaching the younger elephants how to behave right. They taught the younger elephants how to eat, how to survive in the wild. Elephants are very social animals. And these are goddamn animals. I talked a lot about how a system is what makes a person good or bad. I talked in the previous episodes about the Stanford prisons experiment, where 10 students who have committed no crime ever in their life volunteered to be prisoners, and 10 students who have never committed a crime all their life to become prison guards. Within less than few days, the whole experiment came to an end. Why did this experiment come to an end? We have made sure that there is no oversight, and we made sure that we did not give these students any rules or regulations before they became student guards. Within a few days, the prison guards started abusing the prisoners, fully knowing and understanding that these prisoners have never committed a crime in their lives. We saw good human beings, students at Stanford University, one of the best universities in the world, where we think these students were raised very well by their parents, right? Went and committed heinous acts towards innocent civilians. Wajeeh, that's very unrealistic. This is talking about the prison experience between students. It was a controlled environment. This has nothing to do with reality. I'm sorry. This was repeated in reality over and over and over again. I will help you recognize the pattern. Dick Cheney went to George Bush and convinced him to go to war in Iraq. And I tried to pronounce names how they are announced and enunciated in Arabic so you guys can recognize what Iraq is in Iraq in Arabic, or instead of Iran, it's Iran, or instead of Turkey, it's Turkey. I do this on purpose so you guys could catch up to this. So Dick Cheney went to Bush and convinced him to go to war. Before Bush went to that war, King Abdullah at the time raised the phone and called George Bush and said, "Listen, my friend, it's not a good idea. I don't recommend you going to war with these Iraqis. You know, they're very strong. It's going to devastate your economy. It's going to cause a lot of problems in the region." Bush did not listen. He invaded. King Abdullah called him again after him the invasion. He goes, "Listen, I know that you just invaded. I know that you have a lot of projects, but listen to my advice. Just take out Saddam and leave. Let the Iraqis decide. The current Iraqi government put the next leader. Just leave and let the Iraqi government themselves choose the next leader." He did not like that. Bush decided to take the roots of the whole Iraqi government out. Who was putting Iran in check during this time in the whole Middle East? Was Saddam Hussein. The same country that we're fighting right now was put in check and balance by the Iraqi government and would have stayed in their place if we have not touched Iraq. But that's not why I'm saying this. Why are you telling us about Iraq, Wajeeh? I'm telling you about Iraq because we sent some of our best people to Iraq. People who wanted to defend the United States, people who have kids, people who go to church, people who are sitting on board of directors for nonprofit, people who have never committed a crime in the United States, patriotic, national loving people. We send them to the war battlefield. And we took over a political prison that used to be run by Saddam Hussein, where he would be torturing Iraqis and killing them. The United States took over that prison. I thought, no, I was too young to think. You would think, that's the word, you would think the US, after they took over, they would do remodeling, they would create American prison, even though American prisons are horrible. But they're considered a joke to a lot of Middle Eastern. No. The United States on purpose took over that prison, and on purpose they made sure that there is no oversight. The United States made sure that there is no oversight in that prison. Did not give any rules or regulations to the soldiers and gave them prisoners. Many of them, we know that they were innocent. Many of them were on the spectrum, meaning they had some sort of mental. I don't want to call it because it's not an illness. People who have autism, people who have uh, this type of situation, and we put them in prison. Where we put them in the same political prison that was designed to torture Iraqis. What do you think these amazing US soldiers did? What they did next that only shocked the world. I don't like calling it a disability either because um like there is I have issue with the word disability. When I was a student at Kansas State University, I made them change the Student Disability Center to the Student Ability Center. Because when you give people that don't have the tools they need, the correct tools, they don't longer become disabled. They just become able. And I don't like calling people who have Just need extra assistant disable that. It's just my personal preference. There's nothing wrong with what you guys have chosen. Um, but what happened is that the United States, some of the greatest people, have committed heinous crimes against those exact people that we like to say disabled people to. People that have hard time communicating their needs, and many others that have not committed a crime or were just gathered and thrown there. So now we have some amazing US citizens that we have chosen to put them in a situation where the system was designed not to have any oversight. All of a sudden, these amazing people were doing torture on regular people, not on Al Qaeda, not on ISIS, not on government regime people, even though all of that would be a crime against humanity. So, wait a minute. Your prison experiment in Stanford is repeatable. Okay, let me give you another example. When a senator goes and sexually assault another person and gets away with it, why is that? Because there is an absence of oversight, or getting oversight to be applied on these senators or representative is very hard. I'll give you my personal experience working for a state senator, a good state senator, a person of color, a Democrat, a single mom, someone that fights for the minority. Okay. Senator Olitha Fausgudo from the Kansas Senate. That's where I started my first job after college. I became a legislative administrative assistant, and I was the first Saudi citizen to ever have a job inside the state senate or any senate in the United States, either federal or state. I was also a consultant at the time for the police in Manhattan, Kansas, to help bridge the gap between the police relations and this minority community, because the Muslim community felt like they were constantly being overwatched without having any reason for it. So I decided to do something about it. I became friends with the former governor of Kansas. No, became friends. Yeah, I did become friends with the former governor of Kansas, John Cobb. But I became friends with the captain, Tim Hegarty. At the time, he was working for Riley County Police Department. Originally, I had him come over and give us a couple lectures about, you know, for foreigners. The lecture was for people who are not from the United States, about what to do if you get pulled over, what is the etiquettes of how to deal with American police. I wanted, as much as like I understood the American police did not always have the best interests of the American people, but I also believed that it was necessary for people of color to hear what this police captain has to say so they could avoid getting in trouble from the police perspective without having done anything wrong. So I established that connection. Months later, years later passed by, and we are collaborating over this and that. I established an ambassadorship between the police and the Muslim community, where they no longer had to send members of the police to spy on every Friday prayer. They just had the Captain Tim Haggerty that the Muslim community would work with, and they established a friendship where they became friends rather than acquaintance like that. Hey, Captain Tim, I see something that looks, unreasonable. I wanted that type of relationship, and I established exactly that type of relationship. The FBI was impressed. So while I was working with as a legislative administrative assistant, the FBI came to visit me in Topeka, Kansas, to ask how I have done that and what was my process to see if they could replicate the same system for the FBI. So they took me out to lunch. We sat down. We were talking. After we were done, I asked if they'd like to meet the senator that that I'm working for, and they were like, "Yeah, we'd love it." So we finished, and I went back to the Capitol. I introduced the two FBI agents to the senator. And like, oh, here's. I was on a lunch break because doing a consultation. After they left, the senator called me into her office. The first thing that came out of her mouth is she's like, "Are you a terrorist?" Excuse me? She said, reiterated, "Are you ISIS?" What? Why would I be? No. And then her next reaction is, "Do you work for the FBI? Have they hired you to spy on me?" And that harassment continued. She was allied with an LGBT activist, lobbyist. Sorry, an LGBT lobbyist. Let me pull out his name. Yes. Thomas Witt, Witt. He was the LGBT lobbyist in Kansas. And as you know, I'm the first openly, queer person from Saudi Arabia. At the time, I was still in the closet. I was getting ready to come out. I just applied for my political asylum, and she was allied with him. And in fact, she got her first election successfully done because of his support. After he came in, she asked him to convince me to go back in the closet. Senator Olitha Pausguda, Democratic senator, mother of two girls or three girls, single mom, person of color, someone that fights for minority. She lost Thomas Witt no longer became her friend. She lost his whole alliance. because of that small move. When she started telling me to go back in the closet and doing all these other harassments, what could I do? Oh, she was not real. She was not white. She was black. That's what I'm trying to say. Good people, when there's no oversight, do horrible things. I went to HR and I filed a complaint and I had to quit my job. And that started a whole loophole that let the Saudi government know that I was getting ready to come out and has, put me in the spotlight in front of my parents, where my mom started, you know, uh, spying on me. And then I was reported to the Saudi government. And then I had to apply for asylum. I already applied for asylum. I had to run away from my parents' house with two trash bags and enter a safe house. All of that started with those small decisions that was done by a state senator. Why are you telling us your personal story through all of this, Wajeeh? Well, the discussion was when there's an absence of oversight, there's always people who are good that will become bad or do bad decisions. Whether it's a US soldier sent to a battle with no oversight with prisoners, or a prison study in Stanford that was focusing on two groups of kids that never committed the crime, or to a senator of color, a fighter, and a grassroots organizer calling me and assessing and everything that has happened to me. What's the common? There was a absence of oversight. Oh, we're coming close to 2 hours, y'all. I think this is a good place to conclude today's episode, unless you guys have more important questions. Let me take a look. I stepped away from the group chat. Oh, is the question, aren't capitalism, democracy, and incompatible? I don't think it's necessary incompatible. It is compatible if you do it right. Um, I think we're not doing our democracy right, and we're not doing our capitalism right, and the combination of both of them not doing done right has only been causing a lot of damages for a lot of Americans. Uh, and the U.S. citizen is the one paying the price. You want some change? Put people like Bernie Sanders and AOC and what's his name, David from the Orlando school shooting. What's his name? David something, I forgot. Invest in the future. Encourage your the kids that you see of color or non-color, anyone that is smart. David Hogg, yeah. Find you people like David Hogg. He's started a whole program where he's supporting small kids, younger generations running for office. We need younger energy. There are many other countries who are doing capitalism and democracy way better than we are. And when you start mentioning them, they, people on the far right will start telling you, well, why don't you move there? My response to them is, why don't you find a country that is applying religious laws like Saudi Arabia or like that, like cathedral or the Catholic Church or some Christian country? Go to it. You want religion and state? Go to a country where they apply religion state. We came here and to the United States for balance of power, checks and balances, separation between religion and state. We're not even doing that. At least when someone tells you we have capitalism, tell them do it right. We have democracy, tell them to do it right. Because neither our capitalism or democracy is being applied correctly. Okay, I think that concluded all the questions. Much appreciated to everyone that who has tuned in. Please consider becoming a paid subscriber. If you can't become a paid subscriber, please send me a direct message with your email and associate it with your account, and I'll gladly give you a premium membership on the house. If you are just coming now, I am sorry you are coming toward the end of the episode. If you wait a little longer, I will be republishing this on Substack and YouTube. It also will be available on my Spotify and Apple Podcast. It's not available with video on Spotify and Apple Podcast yet. Working on that. T-shirt is getting a little closer and closer as I'm working with the design team. And please share it with your friends. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're definitely watching a recording. Like, subscribe, and share. It helps more than you think. Leave a comment. I'd love to know what you think below. And my YouTube podcast, having that type of discussion is exactly why we're having this podcast. So leave a comment. Let's have a discussion and see where this goes. Like, subscribe, and share. Like I like to say, مع السلامة, bye bye. وبالإنجليزي, goodbye. I'll see you tomorrow.